we're going to go into Beau's demonstration here. We'll start with some of Beau's educational work and some of the stuff that you can
Okay.
see over at Beau's TikTok and his YouTube channel. And then we'll close out Beau's demo with some of ours and some of your favorite films and television series where Beau has done incredible work with his teams. What are your thoughts on AI?
I try to look at these things in kind of an historical sense. I think that kind of helps you be grounded, not just to use a math analogy, draw a vector from nothing, but the farther back you can kind of make your points, you can draw a better vector. And we've had tools in general in filmmaking that have helped make things easier, that have helped automate things. So I see AI as just another profound jump ahead in automation. But we've also had bad filmmakers. We've had people who are derivative and people who just kind of, make the same thing over and over again to make money. And I think if you look at AI as a way of taking artists out of it, it's a way of making a derivative bad filmmaker faster. But if you look at it as a way of helping with tools, help reduce mundane tasks that can enable artists to do the creative stuff and the more nuancey, beautiful things versus just repetitive kind of monkey work over and over again, then I think it's fine. We're not going to lose it. And I think what I tell our students who are obviously kind of anxious, if like, oh, everything's being automated, am I going to lose my job to AI? It's like, well, if all you can do is what AI can do, then you aren't that good of an artist. What can you bring fresh to this? What's your own human perspective? If no human perspective, then we don't need you.
Thank you. All right. I'd not to put you on the spot, but I would love to see why everybody thought I was on shrooms.
Okay, sure.
Do you
Here,
happen to have that bendy loveliness called Bug Bottle
absolutely.
loaded?
I've got a few clips from this. This is just essentially, if you can see my screen, this is just a montage of some of my stuff. This is bits from a Bug Bottle. The idea was looking at fourth dimensional topology. So again, putting this in a story in a context, the challenge was, can you trap an ant inside of a closed bottle in such a way that he can in fact get out? And so this was kind of exploring that. And in doing so, we get into the idea of fourth dimensional surfaces, fourth dimensional space. Again, trying to hit it from a narrative standpoint. We've got, a challenge that's set, trying not to make it a linear path, just here is the solution, but to kind of explore, try things, find failed attempts, learn from those and move ahead. And so that was a Bug Bottle. But in general, this is just a montage of stuff that I've done. Things like Thread Circle and Bug Bottle, it's nice to have a longer format that I could really get one idea and dive into it, explore it, see how it works. But there's also something kind of nice about these shorter form things. I've started doing things on TikTok as per my wife's suggestion. Again, not only is she the voice for my narrations many times, she's the voice of logic and reason for me and says, hey, put things up on TikTok. And I have.
You've got 500,000 followers, don't you? Over 500,000.
Yeah, over 500,000. I've got like 680,000.
Yeah.
Almost 2 million likes. These are from my TikTok, and it's been nice to have shorter little vignettes that I can play with. I don't have to, from a production standpoint, invest months and months and months on a longer format piece, but they're smaller little bite-sized bits, and they take on different kinds of natures. Some are self-contained little stories or some little topic in math, but others are basically meant as kind of just a pure aesthetic. Like, this is a story about how the ancient Egyptians were able to measure their land using ropes. But there's others that are just hopefully a straightforward mathematical pattern that you can see beauty out of it. I think there's we have to make sure that we're conveying the aesthetic behind these ideas. If you're going to ask someone to learn this topic and go on a potentially long, arduous journey into it, they have to know there's something beautiful to see along the way. So, ones like this, there's not necessarily a hardcore math lesson behind it. It's just kind of seeing how patterns develop. This is bouncing a laser 100 times inside of a triangular mirror, and just kind of getting lost in the patterns, lost in how things work. So it allows me to touch on different, little ideas, little flavors. This is one on you can make non-spherical ball bearings, which, hitting this idea of that seems impossible. How could something that isn't a sphere roll smoothly? Well, yes, it can. So those little things to kind of get us realizing there are unexpected, potentially mind-bending things we're going to approach along the way.
Well, can you let the folks in the audience know some of the software that you're using, some of the programs that you're using?
Sure. This is Maya is my tool of choice. I've been using it for so long. I'm just really fast at it because I'm crunching these out really quickly. I also use Houdini software a bit. Houdini is great for making more complex kind of associations and relationships. And I use Adobe After Effects for assembly of pieces and color grading. And I edit everything in Adobe Premiere and do all the audio work and mixing in Premiere.
Now these pictures are just beautiful. Do you ever
Thank you.
just decide to make beautiful demonstrations or beautiful animations and then come up with the story afterwards?
No, I mean, I think the story and the visual can kind of come hand in hand. So I've done things like, for instance, playing with simple harmonic motion. Let's play with, oscillating frequencies in different directions or something like that and seeing what comes of it. Like with the laser, I had this idea of bouncing lasers, and it was interesting to kind of see what kind of shapes would come of this. I like making some very simple little seed of a pattern and just seeing where it goes.
Oh, one of the ones you just showed us about ball bearings that are all different surfaces. How
Yes.
does that work? I mean,
Yes, that was based on something I did in when I taught geometry years and years ago. I liked in my classes to have the students do at least one impossible thing every class. And so we made rouleau triangles, which if you know, like for instance, a rotary engine, the piston on a rotary engine, it's shaped like a rouleau triangle, but it's basically a curve of constant width. So regardless of how you go through it, the distance from one side to the other is constant. And it does not have to be a circle to be a non-circular wheel. Like there was passed by was a drill bit that can drill a square hole. So I think that's important to see because it's hopefully challenging what you think you know and the preconceived notions. People say it's common sense. Well, common sense can take you into regions where you're seeing things how they work that goes against what you thought how they could work. I think that's important as well because again, math will take you into very different weird territories.
From a personal point of view, I love that you showed us how to make a sandwich. I literally have drawn that for my husband and put it on the fridge. He does not know how to put a sandwich together.
Yeah, that was a metaphor for factoring. The idea for that was when you're factoring, what is factoring? Right? Here's a quadratic equation, factor it. Cool. What am I doing? But factoring is basically, are you looking at pieces as whole units or by their parts? So when you look at a sandwich, you can look at a set number of sandwiches, or you can look at the ingredients that they're made of. So that was my way of visualizing, a unit or its component pieces.
Beautiful. Okay, don't be shy, Zoom room audience. You are allowed to ask questions. You can send them to me as DMs. We're going to now delve into Beau's Hollywood career a little bit here.
Sure.
And before we do, I have a question to ask you
Mhm.
again regarding our industry. When I say
Mhm.
our industry, I just want to include people that work in the industry.
Mhm.
Beau, has there ever been a time when, especially in the departments that you work in, computer graphics, visual effects, some animation, and has there ever been a time where you've heard stories of people who have worked on shows, but they've never been credited? I know that
Oh,
this
yes.
happens for writers,
Yes.
but could you tell us from your end of the world, if you've heard stories, if you yourself have been involved without, ruining any contracts and NDAs, can
Mhm.
you please give us a little insight on that?
Absolutely. It depends on the show you're working on, but for instance, in terms of credits that go at the end of the movie, your studio may be given, enough room for only so many people, only so many names. And so they may have to do a bit of a Sophie's Choice decision and who gets to be in the short list of people. So it's not uncommon to have individual artists not being given credit, or you get a studio credit, effects by so and so studio. And it's just kind of the name of the company you work, but the individuals aren't in there. That's by no means uncommon. Um, it also gets, not to go off on a tangent, can get a little bit weird when you work on something for one movie and that can be recycled for something else, or maybe episodic work. Um, I worked on an eyeball for Westworld season 1, and the exact same assets were used in season 3. And so, kind of the question, I mean, I didn't get credit for season 3, but can I say I worked on season 3? Should that go in my
Interesting.
IMDb page? Because when things are digital, it's much more fluid. And
Mhm.
so what you did for what thing becomes much more open-ended. You
Vague.
could,
Yeah.
yeah, you could be an artist at a place, like for instance, if you work at DreamWorks and you're setting up, here's our character pipeline, here's how we work with our characters to get them to move. Well, maybe you make this tool that gets used on countless shows. Do you get credits on those shows? So
Mm.
credits are kind of a weirdly fluid thing for visual effects artists sometimes.
And who owns the assets that you produce? You are the originator. You would think you're the artist, but that's not
Yeah,
true, right?
it's very weird. It's something different because you're working with ephemeral ones and zeros. It isn't a physical costume or piece of art or a prosthetic that's made. It's a digital image. And so I've definitely had cases where, so
Yeah.
here's just, this is a random montage of some of our stuff, starting off with work we did in the show Gotham. I tried to do a lot of breakdowns so you can kind of see process of some of these things. But I've definitely had studios, it's not as much anymore, but where we turn in the final imagery for the film, and then they come back and say, we would like to have the assets you made, the
Mm.
models and the textures and the whatnot, with the idea of, well, are you hoping that you can take this and then for the sequel, go to a cheaper studio and use our work again? Um, uh, yeah, I mean, for instance, you'll see later on here, I think I put in a shot from the Walter Mitty movie, the Ben Stiller Walter Mitty. I made some snow. I made a nice setup for, a snowstorm. And I took my basic snow setup and packaged it, kind of cleaned it up, and then I could recycle that in other shows. That same snow has been in it's been in Game of Thrones, it's been in Man of Steel, it's been in Gotham, it's been in a bunch of things. So, you know, it's a little weird, does, if Warner Brothers paid me, I was on the clock for Warner Brothers to make this asset for one show, can I then use it on something else? And
Mhm.
I'll admit it's a little vague, but the reality is it's all ones and zeros. It's kind of hard to, I mean, should I just remake it from scratch and do the exact same thing again? It's just a little weird.
Mhm. Could you go back a little bit for the folks in the audience? Could you explain what we were looking at when we saw the plate and that, and
Sure,
the technical terms, please, if you don't mind, and what we're
absolutely.
actually looking at? And it was great to see David Mazouz in his sort of origin story happening there. So thank you
Yes,
for that.
yes. Like for instance, here you're looking at a shot from Stranger Things. The slug coming out of the mouth. You don't make these images as kind of one final fixed thing. They're made in parts. So when you look at a final shot in a film, you're looking at potentially dozens of different images that have been all composited together to get the level of nuance and control that you want. These images, like this was from season 3 finale of Lucifer. The amount of when you're seeing a lot of things that look really weird, like these weird colors and weird kind of garish things, those are basically utilities that help us well, deconstruct the image into its basic component parts. So you're looking at, for instance, what is the glossiness level of the feathers? What is the curvature of the feathers? All those things are broken up into different imagery components that's brought together in a process called compositing. So we have the plates, which are like the raw footage shot on set. And then you have the various layers that are made in 3D. The process called rendering, where you're making the actual imagery, but you're not necessarily rendering an image that just gets stuck on top of the plate, but you're again making many, it's broken apart into different utilities and passes. So you have everything kind of deconstructed, and it's possible to really finesse it to look as beautiful as possible.
Awesome. Can you go back a little bit? I think there's a little bit more of a story there regarding those wings, is there? Those were fantastic looking.
Thank you. The big challenge with that is Lucifer was it's episodic. It was for Fox, so we had only a week or so turnaround for a lot of those shots. This, for instance, this is from the movie Noah, the Darren Aronofsky movie Noah, where we're loading all the birds onto the ark. And this we had months and months and months to do. And so we had a long time to make the birds look pretty and do all the feather grooming. But for Lucifer, that was a bigger challenge because we had to economize it. And the season 3 finale with those wings, we had just over a month to pull that off, about a month and a half, including R&D time. And that was special. We had to have bloody wings, so we had to have blood and damage onto them. So that's something different about feature film work as opposed to working for episodic work, is the turnaround times. And I actually kind of like the faster turnaround times. It's nice to be able to finesse a shot for months and months and make it look beautiful. But when you're working on, like this is for the show Bones, we didn't have long to do this. I had to, these are like a 1 week or so turnaround for most of this. And yeah, heads up, there is gore in my reel.
We love gore.
Good gore.
How big is the team that's working on these visual effects, especially for a short or sorry, a quick turnaround, Beau?
It depends. This is with COSA. So for this, we probably had about 4 of us, about 4 or 5 3D artists working on this, and several compositors. At a place like COSA, they do essentially primarily episodic work. They don't really work on features. And the name of the game is staying flexible, because you have different kinds of shots coming through very quickly, fast turnaround times. So you have to be adaptable. And so the team, I would supervise a show. I would supervise, Stranger Things or Westworld or something. And it's then up to me to draw on our team of artists, to coordinate with other supervisors to make sure, here we go, some Walking Dead, to coordinate, okay, who's available? We have to put an axe through somebody's head. Who can help with the animation on this? Who can help with the, this, part of that? So you're coordinating schedules and artists and methodology. That was one of the things as a CG supervisor, is planning methodology. So how are we going to gouge her eyes out? What's going to be involved in that? And part of it is also quick, but also very controllable. So it's very art directable. So when they want to change things around, we can still modify everything. Yeah.
When you
So,
reuse an asset, do you also get a chance to make it even better? You know, some tweaking? Can you talk
oh,
to us a little
absolutely.
bit
I
about
mean,
that, please?
like the snow, like if you saw the Walter Mitty thing there, that snow, I made that for that film, but then it always gets sort of modified and tweaked, and you know, you're always adding new functionality and features. You're always growing. You're never sitting back and just doing the exact same thing again. It isn't Control C, Control V. It's you're building on your tool set. You're calling out from your bag of tricks and always making something, you know, new and different. This was especially fun one to work on because it had so many moving parts. We had to build up Paris from a beach. And this was a great one. I got to rely on so many very talented artists. And basically, as long as they had the right sort of vision where we're going, just got to tell them, hey, you're in charge of doing the awnings and the trees, and you're going to be doing the water on this. And supporting them and trusting, letting them just make magic. That was an especially rewarding one to work on.
And what was the name of that show
That
that the
show is
last
called
one that you showed us?
that was a Reverie. So it's kind of like a Matrix type thing. So they're in a virtual world in here. That's Ghost Rider from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So this was a Matrix like virtual environment there, and so you can program your beach to turn into Paris, France. So that's what the sequence was.
Incredible.
Yeah.
I'm watching a show that I love called Our Flag Means Death.
Yes.
And I am fascinated by the visual effects of that series. I wonder if you can tell us if there's any telltale signs that we should not be seeing that that's a visual effect.
That's excellent. I think many things you can tell, like, hey, we can't go to Zuma Beach and grow an Eiffel Tower. So you know that's not real. But hopefully, I mean, if you look at the shots I had there, I would imagine a good number of those you might not have noticed would be visual effects. It might just be set extension, you know, or if you thought about Walking Dead, I guess you can't really put a sword through somebody's head. So sometimes there are feasibility reasons why you would do this. It comes down to a number of factors. If something you're looking at is fake or not, is it cheaper, safer, easier, more art directable to give it to the VFX artists? For instance, if you're doing a period piece, you know, a piece that takes place in some other historical time period, it maybe doesn't make sense to have your art department dress and construct an entire set of that. But you can basically construct just what the actors are going to be around, and then digitally extend that to be whatever you need. So that's a logistical and expense consideration. It could be a safety consideration, enabling stunt people to do their work and not, you know, they can have wires and pads and things to keep them safe. Or maybe in the case of weapons, we don't have to have, you know, live rounds on set, you know, with blanks. We can just put a muzzle flash in and do other, you know, we can make a muzzle flash and shell ejections and make it look like a real gun. So for a safety consideration. So they're just, it's so an endemic part of the storytelling process now. I mean, there's not going to be any, you know, any movie or most television shows, they don't have some visual effects component to it. You know, it just makes the storytelling, it's another storytelling tool that enables you to do more things easier, faster. I'm not saying it's better. It's not like, you know, don't do prosthetics, don't do stunts, have it all done digitally. No, it just is, it's enabling more things to be logistically worked out.
I really appreciate you mentioning the that visual effects can be used for for guns on set. And
Mhm.
it's such a timely topic because, we all thought that particular thing went away. I'm not going to mention names, but
Yeah.
the poor producer is being brought up a third time on charges.
Mm.
And, do you really want to take that into your own and put all your faith in somebody that you've never met before until you stepped on set
Yeah.
and they've stepped on set? So that's probably where you would need to keep everybody safe. Think about, employing visual effects for sure.
Mhm.
So thank you for that very
Yeah.
timely comment on that.
Thank you.
Beau, has it ever happened to you, again, where you have created something and you have been told, well, we're not going to say that we're using
Oh, absolutely.
VFX?
Told, I thought you meant, have I done a shot that didn't make it into the final cut of the film? Yes, absolutely. But that is kind of a phenomenon now, that part of the marketing of films is to deny that there were visual effects involved.
So we're talking
Chris,
Oppenheimer.
talking Oppenheimer, we're talking Christopher Nolan films, we're talking Top Gun and Mission Impossible and all those things. That part of the marketing strategy is we did this all in camera. We did it the right way. And this isn't new. This has been happening for a while, but it's definitely picked up steam that there's part of marketing. There's something to be said for denying visual effects. And frankly, Christopher Nolan, I mean, I'm not speaking ill of the man. He part of his movies is to promote how much he does in camera, but then he received a Visual Effects Society like lifetime, I forget what the award was, but basically kind of you're a proponent of visual effects, award from the VES. And it's a little weird. Now, for instance, I'm all for doing things in camera. I don't want to just throw visual effects at problems. I think that anytime a storyteller throws a tool at something or a gimmick at something to make their story better, that's a problem. And yes, visual effects has been abused as a deus ex machina to make up for bad filmmaking. But at the same time, I find it kind of disingenuous to deny a fundamental tool that people use as part of the storytelling process. I get it that Hollywood is about an image, and that when you have a Hollywood celebrity, it's not just a human, but it's the celebrity. So that things to be kind of built up to be more amazing and incredible. I think part of that facade helps sell the movies. But it's not like those actors don't have makeup and don't have hair, and people liking them to look pretty. It's all a facade.
Yeah, it's crazy. If you go to the internet and talk about that or look for that, you'll see that, again, we love him. He's made such amazing films, but, you see so many articles about how Christopher Nolan refused to use visual effects, but that's just not the case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here, let me put up something here in the chat to go further on this.
Yep.
Let's see. I'm putting this to all. There's an amazing YouTube channel. It's the movie Rabbit Hole. I'm putting that up in the chat. He does probably the best job of breaking down that yes, these movies do in fact use CG. He brings the receipts. So the idea of no CGI is really just invisible CGI.
Yeah. Perfect.
So,
Perfect.
yeah.
All right, I'm going to bring up, I have a list of questions here from people that are shy,
Yeah.
but this one gentleman or gentlewoman wants to ask a question. So I'm going to just find them in the chat. There we are. I'm going to ask you to unmute. Go ahead with your question. I believe we have contact. Yes, go ahead with your question, please, to Beau.
Hi.
Okay. So it's really a pleasure to be here and
Thank
to
you.
talk to you. Really amazing work.
Appreciate that.
And
Thank you so
the
much.
question is, do you have a plan to someday do a big production about fundamentals of mathematics?
That'd be great. It's going to take more than just me and my one machine and my weekends to do it, but that would be nice. It'd be nice to as good as the TikToks are and shorter format things, I think there are bigger stories to be told. And yeah, I would like to tell a longer format thing, but it's going to take some changes logistically in my life to be able to make that happen.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you for your
If
question.
you have a giant bag full of money and are willing to fund this, I'd be very happy to.
There's some folks that are very curious. If you could take us back into your reel, they want you to explain sort of your work in The Walking Dead, please.
Okay.
One is, could you walk us
Excellent.
through everything that we're actually seeing in that particular loop there?
Okay.
But also give us a timeline of how long it takes
Gotcha.
from episode to episode.
Let me go ahead and call this up again here real quick. One
Thank you
moment.
so much, Beau.
Well, Walking Dead, for a show like Walking Dead, we typically had about a week of production time on that. And I'll share screen here. About a week of, pardon me as I scroll, if I make you all ill as I'm strobing through things. Where is Walking Dead? Where's Walking Dead? So yeah, about a week typically for that. I've worked on set quite a bit. I did not work on set for Walking Dead. This is all shot in Georgia. And what you would typically have for a show like this, a lot of Walking Dead was weapon augmentation, a lot of gore augmentation. They made beautiful prosthetics for the show, but obviously you can't really stick a sword through someone's head. So they would perform with some kind of a proxy weapon. In this case, it's a stick with foam on it. And we would just, augment the weapons. Quite often they would be, like in the case of the next one here, a sad gentleman getting an axe through his head. You can't really split a head open, so you had to do a digital takeover of the head and the goop inside. The challenge on this one was this character is basically hitting him on the head with essentially a green foam clown hammer that when he hits, it bounces all around and was very wiggly. And when you stick an axe into someone's head, it shouldn't move around and wiggle. So the motion we got from the performance was not going to work for an axe. So initially the idea was, we'll just kind of replace the green with an axe head and split the head open, add some gore. But we realized very quickly that the motion of that was not going to work. So we did a full digital takeover, not just of the head, but the whole stick, which meant if the stick moves, his arms have to change. So you had to kind of cut out and re-puppet his arms in place to give a stabilized hit, which meant, like, for instance, the little sash thing, the little strap on his axe had to be re-simulated because the motion of that, we did a full re-sim of the strap on the axe, because that one wouldn't work. And yes, you got about a week of time on this in terms of number of artists. A shot like this, I did most of the 3D work on this shot, but I was working with other artists for tracking. When you get a shot like this, or any shot, when you're putting a 3D element in it, you have to know how the camera was moving, recreate the camera, recreate the performance of the actor, know in 3D space where is the head if you're now swapping out 3D elements for things in the plate. So there's people doing tracking, people doing simulation of the strap and whatnot. I don't know if I don't think I made the model. I did the general layout in the head. I didn't do the model of the axe. So another artist would have modeled out the axe and textured it, given it the kind of metallic bit. That was a hard thing on this shot, was the shot's so dusty and there's not much of a hard light in the shot, and this has to look metallic. So working close with a lighting artist to make sure that we can get a nice glint off of that. So otherwise it looks like kind of gray cardboard. So getting the glint off of that was key to making the sword look metallic and read very quickly. So each of these shots, maybe you've got maybe a team as little as 1 or 2, as many as half a dozen artists. For a bigger show like Game of Thrones or Stranger Things, those were a much slower turnaround. You would have maybe as much as maybe a month on a shot with those. And there could be increased complexity and bigger teams working on those. But then a feature, when you've got maybe you're working on one shot for 4 or 5 months or 6 months, then it's an army of humanity and suffering all being thrown at that.
Thank you. Beau, another question. Are you the creator of the upside down in Stranger Things?
I don't want to say I'm the one who made anything because that's discounting the other artists. But yes, we killed Barb. I'm sorry. So this obviously was shot in a soundstage. It's not in a pool in the suburbs. So shot in a soundstage. The environment behind is added in, and all the floaty bits in the air are added in. In fact, in some of these shots, she should be sort of interacting with them. So we had to make sure we knew in 3D space where she was, any movement she had that had to essentially affect the movement of the falling, whatever the white pieces are. We never knew what those were. But she had to like stir up the air around those. She feels really embedded. If we just kind of put just noisy white specks, it wouldn't feel like she's interacting with them. So there was a good amount of tracking her motion in 3D space, using it to essentially like imagine like invisible smoke, that she's basically interacting with invisible smoke, and the speed of that smoke can then swirl around those pieces so she can feel like she's walking past and stirring up the smoke. And here's our buddy. So.
And how big is that team for this mysterious parallel world?
This actually, well, at COSA, we had at the time, you know, it depends on how many shows they have in-house, but at least 20 CG artists in-house. And they've grown a bit since I've been there. But we, you know, you have your team of artists, and depending on what you're doing, you have to kind of commandeer more labor. For the Lucifer finale, with the bloody wings and all that I had to basically hog up nearly everybody. That was a huge undertaking to get that pushed through the studio in the time frame that we had. So in that case, oh God, how many artists did I have? We probably had a dozen people about full time just hammering on that for a month. And then the compositing artists, I worked more. I worked on set with Lucifer. In addition to and working on set, you're there coordinating with the director and the showrunner to make sure that you're there helping them enabling them to tell the story, and making sure the footage you get on set will work when you bring it back to the studio to the artists. And here I'll go. Where's Lucifer? Sorry if I'm scrolling in. Yeah. So. You're making sure that what you get on set is going to work when you start bringing it into the computer. But like for this, there's so many little hidden things, all the destruction and debris. He's a CG double, CG wings, but the wall here is reflective. We had to reflect the debris in the side of the wall. There's artists that are working on not just simulation of the glass and wood pieces, but then the dust in the air has to be simulated. Actually, in this case, the destruction of the vase here is real. We were planning on doing a CG takeover of that vase because we thought the timing would be too hard on set to coordinate a vase being destroyed and hitting the poor stuntman in the back of the head. But they did that on set. We there's an air cannon over here that's blowing this up into this back of this poor guy's head. Which actually, let me touch on another topic here real quick. More and more visual effects artists, the studios are coming into the conversation earlier. There's a thing called pre-visualization, which is of huge it's a huge stabilizing factor. No longer for a big action movie do you film somebody in front of a green screen and then think we'll put something back there later and it's going to look awesome. What does it look like? We don't know, but it's going to look awesome, and the computer geeks can figure it out. That's one of the worst ways to run a production, is to have people making final pixels figure out what's going on. So the more you can have pre-visualization, which is essentially you're telling the story in a way that kind of looks like a medium quality video game, that the director can look at that and they can figure out what they want, and they can adjust timing. And then you can even from that extrapolate out, okay, so you get this, here's the camera you need. You need this camera lens needs to be here and doing this. So in this case, we actually did some light pre-visualization. We knew the dimensions of the set, we knew the kind of camera, and we could tell them the kind of movement and the lens we needed and the timing to make this work. So having that kind of pre-visualization, so you aren't fixing things in post after the fact, but you're part of the conversation that helps enable the story to be told more efficiently and easier.
Previous visualization, it's a luxury and sounds like a necessity if you really want a great product and great communication with your team.
There are studios that just do pre-visualization. We have, for instance, one in town that does nothing but previs, and this kind of visualization help is called the Third Floor. They do amazing work. They enable the Marvel movies to be told. I mean, you can't just have people running around on a green screen and then hope you can fill in the blanks. But the Third Floor would basically make the movie in nearly its entirety as like kind of a mediocre looking video game. It isn't meant to look beautiful, but it's meant to be able to confirm what kind of story you're telling and to inform then on set how you have to shoot this.
Mm-hmm. Kind of like back in the day, wireframes for web nerds. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you tell us, we have 3 more sort of audience questions there. We're going to go through those very quick, but just sticking with one more topic of visual effects. Is there such a thing as a subtle use of visual effects? I'm thinking, for me, I'm thinking True Detective, series that you worked on. Such a fantastic series. People wouldn't think visual effects, for True Detective or even Fargo or something like this. But for True Detective, would you consider those to be visual effects that are so masterful that they are subtle at the same time?
Yeah, I think it's what I was saying with the movie Rabbit Hole is no CGI is just invisible CGI. So with True Detective, we did a lot of gore enhancement. So doing things like there's one thing, some people were shot, and we had pools of blood pooling out. And if you think about it, could you have been there on set with corn syrup, blood, and just pooled that out? Sure. But you couldn't really art direct how the puddle worked. You couldn't have kind of blocked it and got the speed of the puddle, a nice rippling in it. And if you did the puddle once, how would you reset that and clean the puddle up and then make it again for another shot? So by being able to do something as subtle as a puddle of blood digitally, it gives you a level of control you wouldn't have otherwise. So a lot of these, I mean, if you look at something and it just kind of, you realize that might have been very hard to make that look so perfect on set. Or if you did this, you could only do it once. If you got it wrong the one time, you're kind of screwed because you can't really undo that. Those are the kind of things you'll often lean on with visual effects. It can be even, there are also things like, for instance, notice no teen in the movie has acne anymore. We get rid of all the acne. Beauty fixes, and not just like de-aging, things like in The Irishman, where they took De Niro and made him look, 40 years younger, or however younger they made him look. Not just that kind of radical de-aging, but we just want to make people look more perfect. So we're taking out, acne. I have the sad privilege of I helped do a beauty fix on like a 7-year-old girl. I guess she wasn't pretty enough, so we had to do a beauty fix on a poor child. But those kinds of things are everywhere.
Oh my goodness. Okay, that just hurt my heart a little
I
bit.
know, I know. I hope she never knows. I'm not going to say what show
Yes.
it was because I
Yeah.
hope she never learns that. I'm sorry, sweetie, you weren't pretty enough. We had to pay expensive people to make you look nice.
That
So,
hurts my heart.
I know.
Beau, first, what is the trajectory of somebody who wants to work in this particular industry in your department? Where do they start? And where I think this person might be, I'm looking at possibly a junior in high school, I believe. Where can they start? Can they start that early?
Absolutely. I will try not to be just a sales pitch for Noman, but obviously I'm biased. I'm highly biased towards Noman. We are internet year after year ranked internationally, a top school in the world for this kind of stuff. But not just to give you a sales pitch for our school. Here's what I would say. Before you start being a computer artist, you have to be just a good artist. So don't overlook your analog skills of drawing, sculpting, making things. Don't feel you have to always work in the computer. Because the computer can't make it for you. In the same way, a word processor can't make you a good novelist. The software can't make you a good artist. I would say there are many different fields to get into. So maybe be aware of what's out there. There are a whole range of things when you're looking at stuff. Somebody had to do the hair on characters and groom hair. Somebody had to do the clothing. Somebody had to make the puppeteering controls for all these things. There's a lot of different disciplines. So maybe just kind of see what's out there. And a great way to kind of get into this initially is there's lots of free software. If you want to just kind of see if this is a medium you enjoy, download Blender. If you go to blender.org, blender.org, it's a really amazing piece of open source 3D software. It's not really used professionally. What you saw, there was one small element in the opening for the show with the Orville that had a small little Blender element off to the side, but I've never really worked with Blender where it was used in a studio, but that doesn't matter because it can get you into the medium. It can get you kind of thinking artistically, technically together, and it's a great way just to kind of start. And once you learn about it, you can start researching schools. It's going to be harder to just kind of be self-taught. I'm all for self-education, but there's enough you have to know, enough kind of overhead of knowledge and developing your artistic eye that's hard to do alone. So I would recommend going to a college to hone your skills.
Thank you so much. Yep. If you're not sure, just look up the internet. Noman's on the Forbes best school list.
Yes.
So quite prestigious. Last question from the audience I will take is this one. Is there a project that whether it's already been done or something brand new that you are dying to do? Excuse me, I missed a word. Or redo.
Redo. Yeah, that's one of the things you have to kind of come to grips with is especially when you've got tighter budgets, you never have work that's done. You have work that you ran out of time and money. So I look at shots like I have some shots in the X-Men movies and I'm like, oh my God, I really want that. It does not look good. Yeah, I mean, if you go to older projects with the newer tools we have, they've been so much easier, but I have no desire to go back and redo shots I did from older movies. There's more things I want to make. So I mean, are there things that maybe should be redone? Sure. But I've got so many things on my list of stuff to do. Again, I want to work on a longer format piece on spheres. I think I got some really great things I want to do with that I'm excited about. I'd love at some point to do a longer format thing, like do a series. A topic I'd like to address is actually astronomy.
Mm.
And here, I'll give you a teaser on this. Think about this. Every student in science class, they learn the order of the planets. You know, and they get into molecule, Mercury, Venus, Earth, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so you think, why do we learn things? Because they're important. It's relevant to us. It helps us understand, you know, how is knowing the order of the planets helpful for anybody? Why do we all learn that? How many people, I mean, a good friend of mine that works at Northrop Grumman as a rocket scientist, he's not used the order of the planets in his work, and he's an astrospace engineer. So why do we learn this stuff? And I would argue it is useful, but not because I can chart a satellite to Jupiter. But what's important about is how we know it. How the people, even millennia ago, could look up in the night sky at these dots of lights up there and say, wait a minute, these move differently. How does this move versus that? The fact that we know that, that's what's amazing. And that's, just the order of the planets, that's kind of one thing. Putting this in a historical context, putting it in kind of broader things of how we know this stuff. And look up at the night sky. How do we know all this stuff works the way that it does? That's an amazing series I'd love to tell.
Wow, I can't wait to even hear more about that and watch that coming along to our festival here. Beau, we have a final question, but I just want to
Yes.
say thank you on behalf of all of our hosts and all the folks in the Zoom room here. And Beau, it's just so lovely to have you back, and
Thank you
this
so
is
much.
just such a wonderful opportunity for us, and we thank you for your
Appreciate it.
time.
Definitely. Thank you so much.
And
I thank you for letting me engage and be geeky with your audience. It's a thrill for me too.
folks, check out Beau on any platform, Reason for Math. He's displayed the Reason for Math, and now
Yeah,
you
you're
can
on.
follow him, but you can ask him questions about the both sides of his career. There you go. There you go. Thank you, Beau. That's cool. Perfect. Okay, our final question is, Beau, what have you learned about yourself through the making of your last film?
I'm gonna have a great answer for you in about an hour. It's gonna wait, I should have said this. It's learned about myself. Well, I learned a lot about the production. I feel very fortunate to be able to make these kinds of things. I'm always learning kind of mechanical things about how to economize my time, and when I'm able to kind of spend time making these kinds of projects, so production strategies. But it's just kind of reaffirmed to me that this is what I really love doing. That Bug Bottle was great. I loved it. It wasn't as much for sort of a novice audience. It had maybe a little bit of a wall to get through, but to do something on circles that's much more, this is a topic everyone touches on, that I just felt even more deeply inspired to keep doing this. This is what I think about, what I obsess over, and as me, I love working with the students here. I can't take anything away from that. But this is my passion. Just further affirmation of that for me.